If the speed of light is the same for everyone, no matter how you move, then time cannot behave the way you think it does. Not philosophically, physically. Your intuition says time is a river, and the present is the surface you stand on. Relativity whispers something colder. Different observers carve different presents out of the same universe. And they can disagree without anyone being wrong. Palsy on that. Two people can watch the same pair of events do flashes to clicks and argue about whether they happened at the same time. Not because one is confused, because same time depends on motion, meaning the between you've trusted your whole life the border separating past from future doesn't exist as a single shared boundary. And if that boundary isn't real, what are you standing on? This is where it turns personal, because your identity is built on a timeline, memories behind you, possibilities ahead, and a present that feels like solid ground. But relativity doesn't treat the present as sacred. It treats it as negotiable, like distance, like direction, like a coordinate. You only get after you choose how you're moving. Next, we'll run Einstein's simplest mental experiment using only light, motion, and logic. You'll feel simultaneity snap. And once now breaks, the question mutates into something far more disturbing. Are past and future already there? And are you just sliding across them? If your brain is already protesting right now, that's perfect, because that discomfort is the exact signal that you're actually understanding what Einstein did. Don't just let this wash over you like a cool idea. If you truly grasp that now isn't universal, you start seeing reality differently in everyday life. Conversations, decisions, even the way you remember your own past. So do this for me. Drop a comment with what you felt when you heard two people can disagree on what's happening now. Did it make you angry, excited, weirdly anxious? Comment nitrogen monoxide. Now, if that hits you, or my now, if you're still trying to defend the idea of a single present. And if you want the rest of this to click, if you want to feel the logic snap into place, tap like so this reaches more curious minds, and subscribe. Because what we're about to do next is where most people's intuition breaks completely. The next step is a simple light-based thought experiment that will make your between the past and the future collapse in real time. Your brain carries a hidden assumption you've never questioned. That time flows the same way for everyone, everywhere. Not because you studied it, but because your nervous system evolved inside slow speeds, weak gravity, and short distances. In that tiny bubble, time behaves politely. It lines up, it feels smooth. Cause before effect, past behind you, future ahead. The illusion works so well that you mistake it for a law of reality. But that internal clock isn't measuring the universe. It's measuring survival. Everyday experience trains you to believe that the present is a shared slice of reality, like a cosmic agreement everyone unknowingly signed. When you look around, everything seems synchronized. Your phone, your heartbeat, the world outside the window. The mistake is assuming that this harmony comes from the universe itself when it actually comes from your limitations. Because nothing in physics says time must flow equally for all observers. That idea is senti written into reality. It's smuggled in by intuition. Here's where Einstein quietly dismantles it. Imagine two observers moving differently, one standing still, one gliding past at enormous speed. Your instincts insist they must still share the same now. But relativity doesn't care about instincts. It only cares about what light can do. And light refuses to cooperate with your expectations. To keep its speed identical for both observers, something has to give, and it isn't light. So time bends instead. Not symbolically, not metaphorically. Literally, what one observer calls happening now, the other can legitimately call already past or not yet. Happened. No distortion. No illusion. Just physics doing its job. This is the moment most people resist. You feel it tightening in your chest, that reflex to protect common sense. Because if the present depends on motion, then it's not a universal feature of reality, it's a personal perspective. a viewpoint, almost an opinion. And if your now is tied to how you move, then the clean line you draw between memory and anticipation starts to blur. The present stops being a razor-thin border and starts behaving like a sliding cut through a larger structure, one that doesn't care how uncomfortable that makes you. In the next step, we'll bring in the real culprit behind all of this. A simple rule about light that forces the universe to break your intuition on purpose. And once you see that rule clearly, you'll realize time never stood a chance. Everything collapses because of one rule that sounds harmless until you follow it to the end. Light always moves at the same speed. Not almost, not on average, exactly the same for everyone, no matter how fast you're moving, no matter which direction you go. This isn't a philosophical statement. It's a physical verdict the universe enforces with zero exceptions. Your intuition immediately if you chase a beam of light, common sense says you should see it slow down. If you run away from it, it should catch up faster. That's how everything else works. Cars, sound, water waves, but light refuses to play by those rules. No matter what you do, it never adds your speed to its own. This is where the crime happens. Because if light's speed cannot change, then something else must, and the only available suspects are space and time themselves. Einstein didn't start by warping reality, followed logic to its unavoidable conclusion. Imagine two observers watching the same flash of light moving differently through space. Both must measure the same speed. For that to be true, the distances they measure and the times they record cannot agree. They are forced to disagree. Reality has to bend so light can stay honest. This isn't a glitch. It's a design choice of the universe. Distances shrink, durations stretch, clocks slow down, rulers contract. Not because they are broken, but because reality is adjusting to protect light's rule. What you thought were rigid backdrop space as a stage, time as a metronome, turn out to be flexible participants in the story. Here's the disturbing part. None of this feels strange from the inside. Each observer experiences their own clocks and rulers as perfectly normal. Your body doesn't feel time slowing. Your thoughts don't lag. Your life doesn't enter slow motion. The distortion only appears when you compare realities and realize they don't line up. That's when the question becomes unavoidable. If space and time are willing to deform just to keep light speed sacred, how much of what you call reality is actually negotiable? And we're not done, because the next blow is sharper. Once you accept that space and time can bend, the idea of a shared now doesn't just weaken, it breaks completely. The execution happens through something called simultaneity, and when it collapses, the between you've been clinging to vanishes with it. Here's the moment Einstein truly shatters your perception. It's not just that clocks run differently. It's that the very concept of at the same time is not universal. The thing you rely on without thinking, it's a property of perspective. And once simultaneity breaks, the present dies with it. Picture this as cleanly as possible. Two lightning strikes hit the two ends of a long train platform. You're standing exactly in the middle of the platform, perfectly still. Light from both strikes travels toward you. If the flashes reach your eyes at the same time, you conclude the strikes happened at the same time. Simple, reasonable. That's how you've been trained to define simultaneous. Now put another observer in the middle of a train that's moving along that platform. They are also exactly in the middle of their own world, but they're moving toward one lightning flash and away from the other. Light still travels at the same speed for them, non-negotiable. So, what happens? They don't get to say, oh, I was moving so light from the front was effectively faster. No. Light never gives you that excuse. Which means if the moving observer receives one flash before the other, they must conclude the strikes did not happen at the same time. Let that sink in. Two people using the same logic, both perfectly rational, both obeying the same laws of physics, disagree about whether two events were simultaneous. not because of delays in perception, not because of who saw it first, because simultaneous depends on motion. And if simultaneity depends on motion, then the presenti thin line utol, separated past and future, cannot be a single shared line across the universe. There is no global now. That's the execution. Quiet, precise, devastating, and it gets worse because your mind immediately tries to rescue itself with a loophole. Okay, fine, maybe we disagree on timing, but surely there's still a real order underneath, right? Surely one version is the true one. That instinct is your last defense. Relativity doesn't allow it. It says each observer's slice of now is valid within their frame of reference. No cosmic referee exists to declare one present more real than the other, which means what you call between the past and the future isn't a single doorway everyone walks through. It's a moving cut, different angles, different locations, different definitions depending on how you travel through space. So, the question changes. It's no longer what's between past and future. It becomes, if different observers have different presents, then what is the universe as a whole? A flowing timeline, or something already laid out. Once the present collapses, the universe stops behaving like a story and starts behaving like a shape. This is the moment where time quietly loses its privilege. Instead of events being created and destroyed as now moves forward, relativity invites a colder picture, all events past, present, and future coexisting as part of a single four-dimensional structure. This idea is often called the block universe, and it feels disturbing for a reason. In this view, nothing is flowing. There is no cosmic clock pushing reality forward. What you experience as the passage of time is not the universe changing, it's you moving through a fixed geometry of space-time. Your present is just a slice, a cross-section through that structure. Change your motion, and the slice tilts. What counts as now for you cuts through different sets of events than it does for someone else. That's not interpretation. That's a geometric consequence of relativity. This is where people push back hardest. If the future already exists, where does choice fit? Where does uncertainty live? But notice something important. Relativity doesn't say you see the future. It says the future is as real in the structure as the past. You still experience decision, anticipation, fear, surprise. The psychological arrow of time survives even if the physical arrow doesn't flow. Think about a map. Every location exists at once, but your journey through it is still real. The map doesn't erase choice, it frames it. In the same way, space-time containing all events doesn't trivialize experience. It explains why experience feels local, one-directional, and personal. And here's the subtle twist most people miss. If the universe is a block, then the sensation of becoming of things coming into existence is something the brain generates, not something the cosmos performs. The universe isn't updating. You are. That realization reframes the original question. What's between the past and the future? Stops being a meaningful question. There is no universal between. There are only different cuts through the same structure, made by different observers, each calling their cut now. But we're still not at the deepest layer, because everything so far assumed one thing was untouched: gravity. And Einstein's second act is even more unsettling. Once gravity enters the picture, time doesn't just depend on motion. It depends on where you are. And that means reality itself has depth. Up to this point, motion has been the villain. Move differently, and your now shifts. Your slice through reality tilts. But Einstein wasn't finished. He realized something even more destabilizing. You don't need to move at all for time to change. You just need to be somewhere else. This is where gravity steps in, not as a force pulling objects together, but as a reshaping of space-time itself. In Einstein's view, mass and energy tell space-time how to curve, and that curvature tells matter and time how to behave. The result is unsettlingly precise. Clocks tick at different rates depending on how deep they sit in a gravitational field. This isn't theoretical, it's measured. A clock on the ground runs slightly slower than one on a satellite above Earth. Not because of malfunction, not because of relativity, in theory. Because gravity literally stretches time. Your present at sea level is not the same present as someone higher up. The difference is tiny, but it's real. And once again, your intuition is betrayed. Gravity feels like weight, pressure, resistance, but what's actually happening is more abstract. Space-time is curved, and you are following the straightest possible path through that curve. What you experience as being pulled is just geometry insisting on consistency. Here's the emotional weight of that idea. Reality is not uniform. It has layers, regions where time runs slower, regions where it runs faster. The universe does not share a single rhythm. It never did. Now combine this with everything before. Motion changes time. Gravity changes time. Simultaneity collapses. The present fractures. Suddenly, what's between the past and the future depends not just on who you are, but where you are in the universe. Near a black hole, the concept of between almost loses meaning entirely. At that edge, time slows so dramatically that, from the outside, it nearly stops. Events pile up, futures linger. The geometry stretches until your everyday language breaks under the strain. And this forces the final question. If reality edits time based on motion and gravity, then what you experience as now isn't a fundamental feature of the universe at all. It's a local conditional byproduct of where and how you exist. So what does that make you in this structure? A passenger, a moving couch, an observer, dragging a personal present through a universe that doesn't acknowledge it. That's where everything converges, and that's what we have to confront next. At this point, something unsettling should be dawning on you. The universe never needed a present. It functioned perfectly without a universal now, without a shared moment separating past from future. The only place that boundary ever truly existed was inside you. Think about what remains consistent across everything we've uncovered. Motion changes time. Gravity edits time. Simultaneity fractures. The block universe stands. They're complete and indifferent. And yet, despite all of this, you still feel a presence. You still experience becoming. You still sense a direction from memory toward anticipation. That feeling isn't written into it's written into consciousness. Einstein's equations describe a universe that simply is no flow, no update, no privileged slice labeled now. But observers' brains like yours cannot experience a four-dimensional structure all at once. So the mind does something extraordinary. It manufactures a moving window, a psychological present, a continuously updating narrative that makes a static universe feel alive. This is the final inversion. You are not inside time as it passes. Time, as you experience it, is passing through you. Your memories anchor one side of the window. Your expectations pull the other. And the sensation of between that thin, fragile moment you call now is the result of a biological system trying to navigate a relativistic universe using tools built for survival, not truth. This doesn't make your experience fake. It makes it local, personal, frame-dependent, just like everything else in relativity. And suddenly, the title question turns inside out. What's between the past and the future? Not a moment, not a point, not a universal present. It's the observer. You are the moving cut through space. You are the place where memory and possibility meet. The universe doesn't advance, but you do, carving meaning, sequence, and story into a structure that, on its own, remains silent. And that realization leaves one final discomfort hanging in the air. If the now lives in you, not in the cosmos, then how much of what you call reality is shaped by observation itself. If you made it all the way to the end, you're not just watching videos, you're rewiring how you see reality. So here's what I want you to do. Hit subscribe right now, because this channel is built for the exact moment your intuition breaks and you refuse. To go back to comfortable answers, and if this video genuinely shifted something in your head, leave a comment that proves you stayed until the end. Comment, "I am the between." Or, if you want to be even more specific, comment nitrogen monoxide now. Only me. I read these, and it tells me you're not just skimming. You're actually thinking. Also, drop a like if you want more of this kind of conceptual, mind-bending, Einstein-based reality breakdown, because the algorithm only spreads what you actively push. And right now, don't let the loop close. The next video is already on your screen, and it dives even deeper into the most disturbing implication of all. If time isn't universal, what does that say about destiny, choice, and whether the future is already written?